Hi, everybody. Welcome to another live poetry event. Tonight we have Lee Kisling, Dralandra Larkins, and Lupita Eyde-Tucker. Unfortunately, Karen Molosky couldn't make it tonight. As usual, I'm going to start off by reading a couple of my poems. The first one is, Stop Me If You Heard This One Before. Maybe true love is found in nothingness. Could that be why so many have missed the mark or settled for an imitation? So, one collects things to cramp the uncomfortable space, and another being begruntled simply accepts. I've heard true love doesn't need to be recharged. It is always 100%. It handles the times of chaos, the disruptions that come with life, for it practices forgiveness. Is that a myth? In my next poem, I wrote when I was participating in Tupello's Press 30 for 30 a while back. And this was inspired by a poem that Lupita Eyde-Tucker wrote called Catastrophe Theory. This one is called 1957 Calvin Theory. We could weaponize the mainframe, but that wouldn't be fab. A happy camper may be a pothead on a go-kart, or a zen-like smiley face rallying scumbags to place their refried beans into doggy bags. The meter mater has no need of a plasma jet or a leaf blower as well, but rather charge you with a sin tax for carrying clip art of a bitching clownfish. She was once rear-ended by snakebite. She was offered an opioid for the poison, but decided that was overkill. Her true love balanced RAM and REM on a rumble strip, hoping someone would initialize a photo set. No one did, which her true love thought was due to his static claim. We could send a Northern Oriole to make him a lowball offer on an anti-ballistic missile, but it doesn't fit our genetic map. Tonight's first poet is Lee Kisling. Lee is a native of Iowa, a place that recurs in his poems frequently. He is a retired engineer of railroad signal systems, living in Wisconsin for the last 35 years, and is a 2014 graduate from Hamline University with a BFA degree in creative writing. For 7 years, he has led a poetry saloon in Hudson, Wisconsin, and has organized poetry readings which have become very popular. Kisling has published many poems in various journals, plays guitar and violin. I don't know if that's at the same time. He has not very useful but strong belief in destiny. His poems walk that narrow line between large grief and head-shaking comedy. Take it away, Lee.
Well, hello, everyone. It's great to be here, and thanks for having me with the other fine poets. I have to start with a story. Last December, I was Christmas shopping at a secondhand store, and I found a wicker basket full of Barbie dolls. Is everyone hearing me okay? Yeah? Okay. Well, I bought a Barbie look-alike that had one regular leg and one metal leg. I was astonished to find such a thing. I called it prosthetic Barbie. I gave it to my son for Christmas. He's 40 plus. He really liked it. So the first poem really, I have to tell you, predates all the Barbie cultural recent stuff, you know, the movie and so on. And I will admit I did not go to the movie. But anyway, this poem is called The Midnight Shift at the Barbie Factory. It blinds you after a few months, the eros of molded fantasy. But worst of all, the oversized box where dolls damaged by the machinery are tossed casually, hideously crippled by those old molds, clubfoot Barbie, hunchback Barbie, cross-eyed fat-nosed Barbie, Barbie with jowls, Barbie with wren's nest or mohawk hair, side-breasted Barbie, Klingon Barbie. After a few months working there, you begin to hear the angry mob of disabled beauties in your sleep. each one a Miss America runner-up with a birth defect, a limp, an evil eye. Well, this next poem, it comes right out of Salinger's Catcher in the Rye, is called All Her Kings in the Last Row. Old Jane Gallagher liked the look of it, those ponderous imperial lords serving no useful purpose, but very well organized. One of those quixotic details Holden remembers. If you and I ever play checkers, I doubt I'll get any kings, you being cleverer. But even if I don't, I'm going to say, king me, just to make you smile, just to make you wonder about the odd laughing man that you love. This poem is called Water Tower Mars. Really, it's about isolation, which I figure must happen on every habitable planet in the universe that has poets. Water Tower Mars. Said you would meet me here. Pretty obvious, a giant can up on legs, like I didn't know what one was. Out past the last billboard on the red highway, past payday loans, past the one shoe store for amputees, the one leg pants store, the secondhand flower mart, past the gunshot phone booth at the pull off. Then look up, you said. It's very dark here, only stars, and the black hole in the sky made by the tower. Scratchy gospel music in the Ford with one busted taillight, getting cold too. The last road sign said, slow down, take it easy. This area patrolled by the air. Who are they kidding? What air? The curvature of the earth. And I should maybe preface this with the fact that I tend towards hyperbole frequently. The curvature of the earth. I do remember her curves, upward and downward and all around. I studied them close up, lightly touched and memorized them. I reimagined them later. I learned the curve of her thoughts, the full circle of her yes and no, her forever and always, but not yet. I have driven the loping curves between her town and mine. Once we parked on a hill where we could see headlights going south on the highway, where we ran the heater to stay warm and held each other tight with need, tight with the belief in the miracle of being in love. She's not coming back, I think. This is how it goes sometimes. People turn a corner and disappear, leaving no tracks. I mean to go and find her, but not sure where to start hunting the crowfly winds, considering the roads going every direction and the curvature of the earth. You know, I wrote a poem that was called A Correction, and I wrote another one that was similar to that. And I wrote a pretty good poem once that was basically an advertisement for a hoist company. And I was just musing at the idea of how poets could make some money. Maybe we could, write advertising poems or something. But I did it all in jest, of course. I won't bother you with those poems. But this one kind of comes from that area of my mind. And it is from my belief, my real honest belief, that there is a sort of understanding between a poet and their audience, a kind of oath sworn to be honest. The best way to experience this poem is to look square into your screen, raise your right hand, and repeat after me. The swearing in. All rise and repeat the hell after me. Shopping cart, brain injury, pansy ass, flat tire, hammerhead, snake eyes, Band-Aid. Nothing but the goddamn truth. I have a friend, really good friend, a violinist who got a job in a hardware store. We all have to work somewhere. I had admired her for that and when she talked about the hardware store, she knew where everything was. I thought that was interesting. It's called If I Had a Hardware Store. If I had a hardware store, I would hire you to be in charge of mailboxes and hinges and grass seed and paint. You would assist the Saturday men mulling their 10-penny thoughts. Walk them twice past the big yellow gloves. Find for them the barn red, the flat white, the 3-in-1, the meter box for angle cuts. They're not here for love or bargains, needing shank and steel. Still, you might advise them. Self-sharpening is best. Tempered glass, handles with rubber grips, and this, buy two in case one breaks, or give it to your boy who never says much. I'm the boy in that last line. I try to make an appearance in every poem. And speaking of being a boy, this is a pretty recent poem. It's called Hill of Beans. Hill of Beans is what you won't amount to, I was told many times. And I guess the tellers were mostly right because it was predicted so early in boyhood. And after my long horizontal life, I remembered hearing, and wondering then how high a hill and why beans. It began my lifelong tour of literalism, wondering what an imbecile laughs like, how a post can be dumb, and why exactly it's better to come in out of the rain. And who, after all this time, will stop me from writing the poems? This poem began with something I overheard in conversation, which was the title. And I think, like all good poets, I latched onto those words and I went home and quickly wrote them down in a notepad so I would remember them. And I had to carry it around for 3 years or so before I realized what to do with it. So it's pretty sad. It's called Clown School in France. This is my last poem. How do these two things fit together? The rain falls on the just and the unjust, and yet all the umbrellas are made in the poorest countries. How far away from your troubles do you need to get in order to understand them? The Earth seen from space doesn't show graveyards, but it seems a long way to go. And who is hee-hawing in the balcony of the mad opera of desire? And what is so funny about the tumult of the heart? I ask myself, if I'd known these answers sooner, then what would I have done? I would have gone to clown school in France. Unschool, I have learned that the smaller half of what is sad is funny, and the larger half of what is funny is sad. A younger man might consider a life in the big shoes with face paint tears and drinking alone in the trailer, but it's much too late for me, my dears. The invisible child is in the park again, or does the wind just blow the swing? If I could have seen into the future, then what would I have done? I would have gone to clown school in France. Thank you very much for having me here. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Lee. I appreciate your poetry. Very, very beautiful. Next up, I'm very excited to introduce Dralandra Larkins, who is an award-winning spoken word poet, teaching artist, and the co-editor of Cracked Walnut's anthology, Rewilding Hope 2023. Currently, she is a judge for the Minnesota Book Awards. Her work has appeared in the Minnesota Women's Press, The Edge, and multiple anthologies. She's performed on platforms including the Minneapolis NAACP, Minnesota Black Authors Expo, Button Poetry, True Art Speaks, and Minnesota Black Business Ball. Through performance, she weaves together words, rhythm, and intimacy to create a haven for healing, advocacy, and self-discovery. She is the creator of the Gumball Poetry Dispenser at Next Chapter Booksellers in St. Paul, Minnesota, and serves on the Cracked Walnut Board of Directors and is a member of the League of Minnesota Poets. Visit DralandraWrites.com for more of her work. Take it away, Dralandra.
Hey, y'all. Thank you, Lee, so much for kicking us off. Those were really great poems, so thank you. I especially love that first one about the prosthetic Barbie. And thank you, Ron, for having this platform. I'm really grateful. And again, thank you so much for being flexible. So my first piece, I'm going to perform 4 pieces tonight, if I have some time. But my first piece is called Coils, My Crown is My Garden. And this piece is published in the We Wild in Hope anthology that I had the pleasure to co-edit. And raise your hand if you're familiar with the Crown Act at all. So the Crown Act is a law, great, thank you. So the Crown Act is a law that prohibits hair discrimination, specifically Afro-textured hair and curly hair. So it prohibits discrimination in the workplace. So my first piece is a response to that law. Remember when India Ari sung, "Don't need your silicone, I prefer my own, what God gave me is just fine. My kinks and coils don't need to be defined, sleeked nor greased. My afro grows and flows up and outwardly, stretching the laws of science, defying gravity. I am magical. Yeah, and the world lives inside me. My hair reflects God's nature, like the texture of thick bark on trees. Just hydrate my strands with rain, castor oil, cocoa butter, and baby, I smell like a sweet honeybee. My 4C is lovely because it's phenomenally me, made beautiful. I was blessed by the king who nourished my roots in holy water down to the cuticle, the follicle. My crown is my garden. And each seed that I plant, the coil blossoms strong and abundantly beyond the white soil of embedded conditioning, taught to think that nappy is dreadful, to feel ashamed of 4C hair that can't be contained with their bobby pins. And so our sister locks don't bend to Western beauty conformity as we rebel like Angela and march for peace. Our curls and coils be dancing in the wind so boldly and free. Our magnificent hair was created to wander and to stare and orbit, stardust, and black infinity for all to see that the standard is kinky, it's coily, don't need ya silicone. I prefer my own, what God gave me is just fine. So I sing the song like India Ari, because I am and will be naturally me. Thank you. So that's the first piece. The second piece is called I'm Black. So this is the award-winning piece, right? In honor of Black History Month, this is the way I kind of like to introduce my audience with who I am. So this is I'm Black. I'm Black. Blacker than you can understand. I come from goddesses who wore their essence in the palms of their hands, always uplifting sisters like no other can. I wear the virtue, breathe life into my brothers like no other man, because I am love and light. Come look into my sight and see my reflection. My brown-skinned mother gave birth to me so I could give birth to a new generation of African queens who inspire to create meaningful inspiration. And I never embrace hatred. I got sister blood and soul all over my shoelaces. And if you tie those together, it reveal my true genes and my true nature. Right. Black like West African women with thick hips and full lips, like single mothers with tight fists, like fried eggs, cornbread, jollof rice, jerk chicken, fish chips, and grits, because this is soul food, child. You know, soul food. Black like coffee with no cream. Black like silent screams, Dr. King's I have a dream, let freedom ring. I'm just black. Black enough to fight for civil rights. Black enough to reflect the light. Black enough to broadcast my pride like Sojourner Truth. Ain't thou a woman? Black enough so that when these words touch, they leave fingerprints on your very soul. So how black? Black enough so that when these words touch, they leave fingerprints on your very soul. Black from within, ancestors who unlock the mystery that lies between Genesis and Revelations. Black enough to stick up like a sore thumb and represent a new nation. Black enough to spot and think before I speak. Black enough to absorb more than just heat. See, this is knowledge and I am wisdom. Understand me, see. I'm a proud African American, richness in my melanin, mocha-skinned, kingsmen. You know it's legit because fight the powers in the blood of my heritage. With a little bit of civil rights, Assata Shakur, single Black mothers and a struggle, hip hop, Tupac, Jay-Z, It's a Hard Knock, Motown, James Brown, James Baldwin, Huey, Colin Kaepernick, Trayvon Martin, Bell Hooks, Ruby Bridges, Rena Moran, Sandra Bland, and Malcolm X to be the keeper to my brother, man. See, when I pass on another individual, I was so lovingly, so proudly, unapologetically say, baby, you're black, blacker than you'll ever understand. Thank you. This third piece just was recently published in this anthology here called Reversing Earth. You can't see it, but it's called Reversing Earth. And it was edited by Victor Komolsky and Kathy Fleming, who are also League of Minnesota Poets members. And so I had the honor to contribute to this anthology. And so I'm gonna go ahead and read a poem, one of my pieces from here. And it's called Earth's Plea. And this anthology is available on Amazon if you would like to purchase. When I was 5, I used to watch monarch butterflies light up the night skies like the moon. Limbs and the breath of trees, species complement Earth so perfectly, but we fail to protect nature. Glaciers melt like popsicles on a sunny Sunday as the extension of wildlife continues to decay. Corporate corruption and human careless destruction. We're living in times where truth and lies stand on the same line. You turn on the TV and scroll through your news feed, but the news doesn't feed your mind. It makes you blind, desensitized to reality. We believe the fallacy and argue with facts. We don't want to learn, so we refuse to act. We got wars, illnesses, and disasters. Youth borrowing wisdom from social media, looking up to the masses. Real leaders remain absent, so where are the advocates when Earth is being destroyed with plastic? If we refuse to play blind now, the drought will be drastic. So what's destroying us? Our habits. This is not mathematics. If 1 + 1 is 2, then it only takes me and you to win this race. For our children, I think Earth is worth saving this grace. This is Earth's plea for resurrection. For her destiny lies in our protection, to bring life that is built upon soil where seeds of peace break free and grow into an orchard of love, of kindness, where people stop their guns, stop their triggers, and practice mindfulness. So take a deep breath and close your eyes. Kiss the skies like monarch butterflies, because when you turn off the TV, you find true connection when you disconnect the Wi-Fi. I believe that we're all the missing link. To paint a better Earth, we must change the way we live, what we eat, and how we think. So take down your towers of despair and show Gaia gratitude for life, for breath, for air. Okay, this last piece is called A Letter to Love Yourself. So I typically like to end my performances with this letter. It's an affirmation poem. just because I think it's a good message to leave with people, especially in today's society. So here it is. Love yourself. Do not believe society's concept of beauty, because truly you are a masterpiece created by the master God. You are beautiful. Your skin and bone human. You're not made of metaphors, but your strength is fire. It's never ending. It doesn't burn out. Let no one hold your power. You're the queen, king of your tower. Breathe. So you found the strength to keep going. So hold on just a little longer. What doesn't kill you makes you a conqueror. So you got to be brave. David, conquer your Goliath and slay. Just love yourself. And nah, I'm not talking about if you buy a new pair of shoes with your fresh taper cuts or your brows on fleek, edges sleek. So you shared a tweet and now you're feeling yourself. I'm talking about heal yourself from the roots of your core. Because if you won't acknowledge who you truly are, then what is your purpose for? So this, it's a society that made you feel like you're Black is not a boastful believer. And this, it's a society that made you feel unsatisfied with the skin that you're in. Fall in love with your imperfections, skin, smile, face, collarbones. You are a blessing, and don't second guess it. Because I absolutely and definitely, wholeheartedly love me unconditionally. Do not believe society's concept of beauty, because truly you are a masterpiece. Thank y'all so much. This has been really fun.
Thank you, Dralandra. Those were wonderful poems. Next up, we have Lupita Eyde-Tucker. Lupita is a poet and literary translator raised in New Jersey and Guayaquil, Ecuador. Her English translation of Venezuelan poet Oriette D'Angelo's collection, Homeland of Swarms, was published in January 2024 by Co-M Press. Lupita holds an MFA in creative writing, poetry from the University of Florida, was named a fellow by Vermont Studio Center, and has received generous institutional support from Breadloaf Writers Conferences, the Kentucky Women's Writers Conference, and the New York State Summer Writing Institute. A four-time Pushcart Prize nominee, her poems have recently appeared in Best New Poets 2022, Poet.org's Poem a Day, the Cortland Review, Ninth Letter, MER, and Anna Tapa Review. Read more of her work on her website, notenoughpoetry.com. Take it away, Lupita.
Thank you so much, Ron. Can you guys hear me? Okay, awesome. I just really was blown away by both Lee and Dralandra. So thank you all both so much for your readings. Wow. I'm going to read 6 poems, and they are from my current manuscript in progress, and it's called Eucalyptus. And I love what you said in one of your poems, Dralandra, where you were talking about like you were listing the genealogy of like bell hooks, Tupac, like all of this, and that resonated with me because something about genealogy is important to me, and I feel so much that my ancestors call me through my bones, which is a weird thing to say, but I just want you all to keep that in your minds when I read these poems, okay? Okay, so the first poem I'm going to read is called Alausi, 1941, and Alausi is a small mountain town in the Andes Mountains in Ecuador. I want to know what she saw that day on the train, tallest man in a land of patuchos, and what coal-fired sentence picked up enough steam for her to agree to elope with him. Abuelito, when his name was Guillermo, was a scandalous choice, but she was in a hurry. Maybe she fell in love with his hands, 2 bulldozers that chewed whole mountains to lay her a road. I can almost hear her heart pounding, each step faster until she could fly. Abuelita, when her name was Defilia, needed heavy machinery to tear out her roots, daughter of God, pretending to be an orphan. She, wrapped in a blanket. She, a whispered psalm, recited from memory, folded like a white handkerchief in Guillermo's shirt pocket. So the next poem I'm going to read is called Eucalyptus. So it's currently the title poem of my manuscript in progress. That could change. I'm open to change. But right now, this is the one. In 1879, Presidente Garcia Moreno brought silver dollar eucalyptus trees from Australia to dig their heels into these hills to keep things from sliding further. In the foothills of the Andes, in a hush of eucalyptus, gnarled and knuckled bark beckons me. Lie down on pillows of hojarasca. Forest floor soaks up noise, sponge of days. Streaks of sunlight anoint this stained glass cathedral. Here, you can inhale deeper than you've ever breathed. My abuelita, when her name was Defilia, bundled eucalyptus branches on her way home, hung their bouquets upside down until the Cordillera rains would bring el resfrío. In Guayaquil, when her name was Marianita, when traditions were all she had left, eucalyptus and manzanilla hung in her kitchen, brought from Las Indias and the Mercado Sur. Camouflaged in dark green leaves, she shape-shifted into tropical hibiscus, caged bird of paradise, pressed between spiral-bound pages, the crinkle of scripture, fragrance of Vicks vapor rub, her Sabbath rituals, the sacred aroma that permeates everything. The first time I traveled there, in my father's Volkswagen camper, the patina on the leaves reminded me of greenbacks, copper pennies, the Statue of Liberty. I wanted to be a forest ranger so I could spend all day in that temple, branches lifted in praise, lifted to hold back the sky. I too have been uprooted, brought thousands of miles, expected to thrive in foreign soil. Decades later, I learned eucalyptus trees suck all the water from Andean aquifers. My conscience pangs. My roots are still thirsting. Now, I still get congested, return to lush Andean forests, my grandmother's home, release the trees into the air above my mug. Una agüita de eucalipto, mijita. Gracias, abuelita. I sip in the now and breathe, my rib cage, the open and closed lung of a blessed force unleaving. Okay, so the next couple of poems are from a part of my manuscript, which is talks about and kind of imagines my ancestors, which happen to have been Sephardic Jews that had to flee Spain in the 1500s. And they were able to get to South America and kept running until they were hidden as much as they could hide, and pretended to be Catholic, because if you didn't do that, you would obviously lose everything or be killed. So I have a whole bunch of poems kind of that talk about that. So this one is called Ode to la Conquista. And la Conquista in Spanish means the conquering, the conquered. My mother is an ancient invitation to dream. The saliva left on the hand that was kissed, the perfume of the ocean, the maddening wind, the tightening winch on a torturous reach. My mother is something to bet the kingdom on. The illiterate one of noble lineage, sweat pooled between the scapula, between eyebrows. My mother is the blood puddled around the throne. My mother is one eye over the shoulder, a Sabbath prayer beneath the breath, the rot of brine between the boards, shrieks of secret spoil in island forests. My mother, the woman with gold in her veins, the thin air on the mountain, the hole in the earth, so deep. The next poem is called Guaranda. And Guaranda is another town in the mountainous region of the Andes in Ecuador. And just take my word on this, it is the hardest town to get to. I have tried numerous times. But maybe there's a reason why. They has an epigraph. The epigraph says, if he had split the sea for us and had not taken us through it on dry land, it would have been enough. Dayeinu. It wasn't enough that we slogged pale across horse latitudes, bound burros west through muck and jungle, malaria, the 11th plague, forded the Amazon, tambourine danced like Miriam, Omain and Omain. We thought Loja was Eden, an eternal spring of lush, fruited soil, but they found us. We could smell their burnt breath in the wind. Fled further north, Cuenca, a river Jordan, if we ever saw one, streets paved in Inca gold, then washed bloody, they found us. We covered our bowls, climbed higher, beyond El Páramo to Riobamba, but here they were waiting, tightening their racks, licking their lips of fire to devour us. We walked through the valley of death, dug our heels into this mountain, covered our tracks with switchbacks, prayed to Abba that the world would forget our names, sackcloth and ashes, Omain and Omain, counting 10,000 Shabbats. Here we've stayed. May our children's children never forget why we came.
I love all these pieces.
Thank you. Okay, here we go. 2 more poems. Okay, this one is called Without Reparations. And it also has an epigraph. So I was doing research about my family and my ancestors and the families, not just mine. And so I found an interesting article in the Atlantic, and I have a quote from that. And the quote says, in 2015, the Spanish Parliament enacted a law inviting the Sephardim, Jews who trace their roots to Spain, to return. And that the title of the article is Spain's Attempt to Atone for a 500-year-old Sin. Land slit like a throat, life poured out like gold coins on cobblestone, confessions pulled from tongues like toenails off toes, piled with scorched scrolls our paschal pyre, confessions extracted like gold, coins swallowed, then picked from the coals. Nothing sacred but pyres piled, a pathetic penance, my hands washed with my blood, an act of faith? Is nothing sacred but my ashes, picture of oblivion, my name, oblivion? My faith forgets its name, washed with blood, my act of courage or escape. Am I nothing? What is nothing? Oblivion forgets my name, my faith, the thing they cannot take, the gold I protect with my life. What is courage or escape? It is nothing I can lose or forsake. They took everything that tied me to this place. They cannot take my faith. I protect it like gold, pulled from tongues like toenails off toes. There's nothing left to tie me to this place. Land slit like a throat, gold poured out. Thank you, guys. Thank you all so much. Okay, last poem. I'm gonna end on a light note, I guess. Lighter, much lighter. So this poem is called Mis Gacelas, which in Spanish means my gazelles. Gazelle being a form of poetry that is also traced back to like Spain, medieval Spain, and then other places before that. So I'm very like, I love gazelles. But it also, in Spanish, the word gacela means gazelle. So I love that idea of like a poem kind of leaping from image to image or from decade to decade or century to century. Mis gacelas. In New Jersey, Mamita watched all my children, stones in her mouth, rolling her tongue against cold words in English. Spanish is my mother. My father tongue is English. My feet danced in Spanish. My chains broke in English. I was 12 when we moved to Guayaquil, immersed in a mikvah of language to break my yoke of English. A key, a cipher, a tuning fork tongue, I become a window in Spanish, a muscle in English. Sometimes in Ecuador, I'd pretend to not understand, haciéndome la gringa that only spoke in English. I raise my hand in class. My biología teacher laughs, makes fun of my accent, but he chokes in English. Mis gacelas are the unparsed dichos in Spanish, painting pictures there are no colors for in English. Time couldn't erase my accent, the one that betrays me, that sounds like my father. I cry for the tongue cloaked in English. Married at 27, at a Christmas party in the US, my new in-laws complimented me on how well I spoke in English. I've been practicing since birth, was my astonished reply. But Lupita isn't a word that can be translated in English. Thank you.
Thank you, Lupita. That was wonderful. Thanks to all the poets that were on tonight. Thanks, Valerie Lockhart and Minneapolis Television Network for putting this on. And thanks all of you for watching. Have a wonderful night.